say that Ryan Garcia's comeback fight could be this fall against Jojo Diaz, right?
Man.
So my question to the panel is Ryan Garcia and Jojo Diaz, are they both avoiding Devin Haney? Because both of these guys were mentioned as potential opponents for Devin Haney. Devin Haney's been calling out both guys. Devin Haney does have the WBC title. Are they avoiding him? And if they end up fighting in the fall, should the winner fight Devin Haney? Go ahead, D-Star. You got your hand up.
That's right. I learned to do this in school. No, but I just want to say this. Of course, people were avoiding Devin Haney. Like I think that's like the most. We're not going to do ourselves any favor if we pretend that there isn't, like, unless you think Devin Haney is the most unlucky dude in the world, right? I mean, you have to kind of concede at the very least that these guys, like, we could safely say they're not going out of their way to try to fight the guy. You know what I mean? Like they're not. Like, that needs to be said. That's how I personally feel. It doesn't mean they're scared of him or something. You know what I mean? That's not what I'm saying. But I question. I'm sorry. I heard from a source that they might be fighting in the fall. Doesn't mean anything to me. If it doesn't happen, he used the word might. If it does happen, I told you. Means nothing. We all speculate that. Any one of us could have tweeted that out. Any one of us, because we are all speculating that's the fight that's going to happen next. With or without connections. So spare me, okay? Now, what I will say is this, in fairness to Jojo Diaz specifically, okay? I honestly feel Jojo just walked into this Devin Haney situation. Like he literally did. He volunteered to take on Fortuna last minute, beats Fortuna, and all of a sudden, hey, you got to fight Devin Haney next. You know what I mean? And if we're honest, man, I just don't think a lot of these guys want to fight Haney, you know, because he'll be a difficult guy to beat. Like, they don't see that reward or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? So I think in Jojo's mind, if he's honest, that's just my opinion, he feels that a fight with Ryan Garcia would be a bigger fight for me, etc. You know what I mean? I think that's how he feels about it. So, are they avoiding Devin Haney? Look, man, I don't want to tippy-toe around this and pretend it's not happening. I'm going to say that, yes, they're avoiding Devin Haney.
Do you like the fight? If it's Jojo and
I love the fight. Look, I'm not going to hold it against him forever if they don't fight Devin Haney, okay? Like, if they fight each other, I love the fight. I think it's a great fight. But the question was, are they avoiding Devin Haney? And I would say that, yes.
Okay.
They are avoiding it. What the reason is debatable, but they're definitely avoiding the fight.
I agree. Maestro, what are your thoughts? Do you think Jojo and Ryan Garcia are avoiding Devin Haney? And do you think that Ryan Garcia is ever going to fight for the full title?
I think they are avoiding him, Joe. The question, though, is like whether they are afraid of him or not. If that's the question, I don't think they're afraid of him. They just look at the risk for reward factor, which I think a lot of professional fighters do. And they do not see much reward in taking on the tremendous risk of a very talented young fighter that is probably not going to make them look very good if he fights them. So I do think that he is avoided. People laughed at me when I said that a few months ago, but I still think it. I don't think they're afraid of him, but the proof is in the pudding. He's got a title, and he's struggling to find opponents. To me, that's a guy that's being avoided, Joe.
I got you.
Donato's got $1 million, ladies and gentlemen. He got $1 million to fight Devin Haney. Just think about that.
Yeah. Eric, you're a big Devin Haney fan. Do you think he's getting the shaft here?
Yeah, you know what? And I tell you, it's the Jojo Diaz and that fight right there. It's far from what I read. I believe it's an eliminator, correct? And the winner fight is supposed to fight Haney.
Jojo Diaz has the interim title, and I think that the winner could be ordered to fight Haney, but I'm not sure.
That's what it sounded like anyway.
Okay. Okay.
You know, but I think if it was up to Garcia or Diaz, they would fight Haney tomorrow. But it's not. It's up to the promoters. And the promoters, listen, man, who you got, you know, you have a guy like Jojo Diaz. You got a guy like Ryan Garcia. You know, Ryan Garcia is a big name. He's huge. Am I going to risk that on his next fight going to fight Haney? Or will I move up and wait and fight an easier guy? Or will I go fight an easier guy for a fringe title or for another title? Because then I could call myself the champion. You know what I mean? I can call my guy the champion, and then I could say, hey, Haney's running from us, blah, blah, blah. We can – listen, that's what it's about, man. They're going to keep this guy as long – and it's not just every promoter is going to do this. Every promoter – nobody's going to try to put their fighter in harm's way. They're not interested in that. They're interested in making money, man, and that's where it is.
Yeah, but here's what I'll say. Linares is a Golden Boy fighter, and he got, I believe, it's his career highest paid to fight Devin Haney. So there is money to be made to fight Devin Haney. Like,
yeah, but Linares isn't Garcia. The upside for Linares and the upside for Garcia, when you look at it long term, there's a big difference.
Yeah, Garcia's got options. Gee, yeah. I see you nodding your head, man. What's your take on this whole situation?
I agree a lot with Eric just said. This is boxing at its finest. Boxing as usual, playing the politics, keeping shit in house, and that's what's fucking up the game. I mean, we all know that. We've been talking about this for a long time. This is what's destroying boxing. They're not allowing these fights to happen. I've always said this, and I'm always going to continue to say this because I've grew up with fighters. I've seen the way fighters prepare for fights. These guys aren't afraid of anybody, okay? People, I mean, that's contrary to popular belief out there in YouTube, but I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. I know. Like I said, I've been around fighters, okay? These dudes will fight anybody you ask them to fight. You know, if there was no bullshit promotion, cross the street, all this nonsense, if there was like a schedule like other sports, these fights would be happening, man. These dudes are not afraid. That's just the way it is. This is just boxing politics at its finest, trying to make money. Now I want to say this. I do feel sorry for Haney because he is trying to get fights and they're not happening for him. And I want to say this, man. I like Ryan. I do. But he's pissing me the hell off, man, with what's going on. He had himself a good win earlier this year against Luke Campbell where he gets dropped, he gets up, comes back and knocks the guy out. That's impressive, you know, for a young fighter to do that. Then he goes away with mental health. Okay, fine. You had your mental health stuff. Like, he should not be the guy to step in right away. Like, JoJo, whether he likes it or not, you know, he's a hot name right now, 135, because he steps in, he beats Javier Fortuna, who was a tough guy. So I feel like Ryan shouldn't even be involved in any of this shit right now. Like, he should be taking a back seat. Like, motherfucker, you took yourself out of the game, you know? Take a back seat. Let these other guys get things going. You work your way back in, you know? But again, this is boxing politics. Just like Eric said, Ryan is a big name. He's got a lot of followers. He's got a lot of fans. He almost sold out the Anaheim place where he fought last time against Fonseca. You know, there was a lot of people there to see this kid. So they see potential money, big fights with him. So that's what this really is, man. And it sucks. You know, I don't like it, but until something changes in the sport, this is going to continue to fucking happen, man.
I think but he, what? Let me say this. So I get the whole, like, fighters aren't scared of fighters. Like, they don't, of course, fighters don't get that, like, fear of altercation, like, you know, or throwing down with somebody, right? But they do have concerns about losing to somebody, losing O's. They do have concerns about that. I think that's very evident. I'm sorry. I do think there's guys that they'll rather not fight, or they're not in a rush to fight. Like, I do believe is a thing. And what I will say is, look, Oscar De La Hoya and even Golden Boy's own matchmaker told us that they told Canelo, we don't want you to fight Lara. That's what they told. Canelo said, I don't give a fuck. I want to fight him. And the fight happened. So at some point, we need to, at the very least, hold fighters accountable. We need to be able to say, yo, you need to do more to try to make this fight, not give him a pass. And I'm not going to give JoJo and Ryan a pass. I'm not going to hate them for it. I'm still going to watch their fight. I think it's an awesome fight. Okay. But I am going to say you guys definitely are avoiding Devin Haney. That I will say. And hopefully that type of pressure can pressure them to actually do these fights.
I think they both see.
I think that was a bad comparison, in my opinion.
I think they both see, though, each other as an easier, more lucrative fight than Devin Haney. And that's kind of what the problem is. JoJo would rather fight Ryan Garcia than Devin Haney because he thinks it's an easier fight and he thinks it's a more lucrative fight. And I think the same is true with Ryan Garcia as it relates to JoJo Diaz. He sees JoJo Diaz as a guy who's coming up from 130, who's older, who's probably slower, who he thinks he can beat easier, and who's going to make more money for him. I think really that's what it boils down to.
I'm going to go to Dave, but then I want to hear G-Funky's rebuttal to D-Style after we go to Dave. Dave, go ahead. What are your thoughts on this matchup between JoJo and Ryan?
Well, I actually like that. I've been following the banter going back and forth on social media between Ryan and the other guy, and I think it's pretty good. I like it. I like that fight a lot, and I'll tell you, I don't think that either of these guys are
JoJo
afraid.
Diaz, you mean? JoJo?
Yeah, JoJo Diaz. I don't think either of them are afraid of Devin
Other
Haney.
guy, I got you. Go ahead.
I blanked out there. Yeah, but I don't think they're afraid of Devin Haney at all. I mean, I don't think either of them fear or think they're going to get knocked out by Devin Haney in the least bit. But what I do think is that Ryan's ego, probably like other great fighters who are the A side, and let's just be clear that I really do think that in most negotiations, Ryan is going to be the A side because of what he's already commanded. Because like you said, he's already come close to selling out a stadium. All right. He is definitely going to be the A side in the Devin Haney negotiation. And maybe he dislikes it. His motivation will be different from, again, I forgot his name. His motivation is probably based on the fact that he doesn't want to share the big piece of the pie. He dislikes the guy so much that he does not want to give Haney the big fat paycheck, because anybody that fights Ryan Garcia is going to get a big fat paycheck as well. So why put yourself at risk, like you said, in a snoozer of a fight, a complicated fight, maybe a fight that's not fan friendly? Why do that to yourself? Ryan may not be concerned about collecting all these titles. He just may be concerned about, what's the right fight for me at the moment, the glory and the fame that he's going to get from each individual fight.
Yo, really quick, Dave, who was Ryan Garcia's last opponent?
Fortuna.
Luke Campbell, right? No, Ryan Garcia.
I'm sorry.
Luke Campbell, right?
I'm all scrambled, guys. By the way, I'm suffering from insomnia, so
No,
that's why I'm scrambled.
you're fine. But he fought. David Haney fought Linares, correct?
Yes, great fight.
Okay. Well, let's do a test. What's the bigger bag against who? Who do you think made more money, Linares or Luke Campbell?
Linares or Luke Campbell.
The
I
answer
don't know.
is
I don't know who made the bigger prize.
Guys that fight Devin Haney, right? Right or wrong, the zone's overpaying, whatever the reason is.
Oh,
you
yeah,
make
they're
more money
overpaying.
if you fight Devin Haney. Those are just the facts. That's not these styles' opinion. Those are just the facts. These guys are running out of reasons not to fight Devin Haney. I'm just telling you that right
There's
now.
a strong argument that Devin Haney is overpaid.
But that's irrelevant though. Like if you fight him, you still get paid, right? If you get contracted with someone who's getting overpaid, but you're going to get paid more than you ever made, does it matter that they're overpaid? No, right? So all I'm saying is, just to put it out there, this is not my opinion. Mm-hmm. Guys that fight Devin Haney just make more money than the guys that have fought Ryan Garcia. That's just the empirical fact. And I want to make sure everyone understands that.
I want to make sure that I understand this. Are you saying that, and if you look not just at the last opponents, but let's just say at the last 2 or 3 opponents, that Devin Haney's opponents get more than Ryan Garcia? That because one could say that that's also because he actually faces a higher caliber of opponent up until at least the Luke Campbell fight. No,
I think it's the zone money too, though. To be fair,
Luke Campbell and Linares are very comparable, brother.
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean?
I'm just saying, if we're looking at that last fight, I just don't know if there's any more data on it than that last fight. That's my only question. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just asking.
Gotcha.
Yeah. DAZN has publicly made statements in the last month that they are going to reduce the budget in the U.S. fights on their DAZN USA platform. So that may not be the case going forward. And I definitely wouldn't invest all that money in Devin Haney if he's not selling out stadiums. Yeah. I mean, what's his gate? You know, what kind of gate does he bring to the table? I don't think he could even sell out his home city now of Las Vegas.
Gee, I want to hear your rebuttal to D-Style's last point. I think you had something to say before Dave went.
I would just say this. You know, I understand the Canelo and Lara situation. Oscar did not want him to have that fight. And he said, no, I want the fight because the dude walked up on me and called me out in front of everybody. And they made the fight happen. You know, Canelo gets a lot of credit for that because Lara is a guy that a lot of people weren't trying to fight at that time. But we also have to remember is that Canelo, at that point of his career, even though he was just kind of starting out becoming, of a star, he's much bigger name at that point than a Ryan Garcia and, a Jojo Diaz. So for him to call his own shots, it's more likely that someone they would say okay to Canelo than someone like a Jojo or a Ryan. Like they see that they could probably sell out an arena in Southern California if they put those two together. So, I just don't think that's a good comparison. Like these guys can't call their shots like a Canelo could at that point.
Got you. Well, let's move on.
I don't agree with that, but it's okay.
Interesting